Welcome to the Juniper podcast, where we chat with the most fascinating people in the pet space and dive into ways to keep our pets happy, healthy, and enriched. If you're a little obsessed with your pets like we are, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Juniper podcast. I am co-host Haley here with Ebony Richardson, who we interviewed. Her episode came out last late summer, early fall, and she has since been working with us on the Juniper team, doing a whole bunch of things for us like social media and just brainstorming really great ideas. So wanted to chat with her on one of these miniature episodes of the Juniper podcast. So Ebony, what is new in your world?
It's been, like you said, I think the last time we chatted was around last August. So I had only had Atlanta Dog Mom going for a few months. I guess the really fun thing about Atlanta Dog Mom is all of my random ideas. I don't have to wait to execute them. I can just be like, I think this is a good idea. And I'll just email the person instantly. And then, so it's been fun to kind of be able to run with my impulses and creativity a little bit and see that come to life. It didn't even occur to me this year to maybe offer low-cost dog training. With Atlanta Dog Mom and the nonprofit, we have a pet pantry, which was a random tangent. And then we had Community Care Day, which was also a random tangent, me being like, why don't we just do this? And I just asked my manager at work, can I do this? And then we just put it together really quick. So another random tangent is me thinking what is another low-cost pet care service we can offer? And it was dog training. I said oh yeah, I want to offer low-cost dog training. And then between just me texting my network, I would say maybe within a week or a half or 2 weeks, we had 3 trainers who were like, yeah, I'll volunteer. Let's do it. And then one of my friends owns a grooming salon and he's closed on Sundays. He's like, you can use my place on Sundays. And so it comes together. I guess the power of community has really been coming together because there are things that feel like there's some idea and I don't realize I can actually take action about it, because I think there's a lot of things I'll just pin it for later. And it's actually I can text somebody and we can start dog training next week. So it's been really fun doing stuff like that.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. That's such a quick turnaround on executing the vision. And like you said, totally speaks to the power of community and the power specifically of your community and the network that you've already established and Atlanta Dog Mom Social Club coming up on a year. That's incredible. Tell me more about these low-cost dog training services. You know that I'm such a training nerd and this is an incredibly important service that is still so inaccessible. And I'm always a little bit torn on that because I have so many trainer friends who have helped me understand that it is such an exhausting career. And I want all of my trainer friends to be so fairly compensated for their work. But then there's also the other side of it where it's so many pet parents need training and can't afford it. And so I love the way that you're approaching this to help find a way to bridge this gap where everyone can win.
Yeah. Now I'll say just across the board, all animal welfare workers, anyone who works with animals undoubtedly needs to get paid more. That includes trainers, vets, vet staff, kennel workers, doggy daycare. Literally, if you're working with animals, you are most likely underpaid. Honestly, it's the same thing as working with kids, which is unfortunate, but I think it's one of those things where fields that are traditionally run by women or traditionally considered empathetic things or things that should be a woman's instinct, are not paid well. And on top of the women, it's just people don't care about animals as much in our society today and kids. So I know it's a lot to try to tie together, but I said that to say, to be very clear, the only reason we can do low cost is because I have a nonprofit. I can't say oh, other people are ripping you off. It's no, I just have 3 other jobs. That's really the only way I'd be able to do it is because I'm making a living off of it. And if you want to be able to, you should, and it will cost more money. But with that being said, having a 501(c) allows people to do things like give you access to space because they can write it off for their taxes, or even the people who are volunteering, I can give them tax credit for their time and their services. So that makes it a lot easier than when you're a traditional trainer. You have to pay for the space that you're training in. You have to include that in your fees. I understand why dog training is expensive as it is. And I understand that a lot of times when pets are getting dumped or returned to shelters, it can be simple behavior issues that the parents just didn't expect to deal with or aren't prepared to or just don't want to deal with, to be honest, which, no judgment to anybody there. But I think a lot of things that get pets maybe returned or make people feel like, oh no, I can't have a dog or this dog is doing too much. The dog is just jumping because it's young, but certain people, that jumping will get the dog put out or the jumping will get the dog rehomed, because they don't want it. They don't want scratching up their walls. And, it's a lot. And to be completely honest, like I know this sounds silly, but I completely forgot about my dog training background for like a few years because I just like, I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing, but it's like when I move on from something, sometimes it can feel like a different lifetime. And so when I lived in Alabama, I had a dog walking service and I was a dog trainer at Petco for about 2 years. And then when I left Petco, I was like, let me take it a step further. And then I enrolled in a clicker training program that I cannot say their name because I did not complete the program, so I do not represent those people. But I was in a clicker training program and was very much preparing to make dog training a thing that I did outside of Petco, just independently. And then COVID happened, and then I moved to Atlanta, and I completely switched fields. Like I went into vet med, and when I tell you dog training has been off my radar for so long, that's why I'm like I kind of forgot that I had all this stuff. So when I'm like, I should get some trainers and they'll volunteer, and I did. And in the midst of that, I'm like, I could totally teach this class. I do understand there are people that go on to get their certifications, and like I said, like every trainer, I won't say every trainer, every respectable trainer charges a fair rate. I'm not going to say that it's too high or too low. I've been out of practice for a little while. I stopped in like 2019. And so I would not come out here charging you $800, $900 like I've been doing this for years and I haven't. And so I'm like, this is a way that I can use skills that I have that I actually enjoyed. And I literally just stopped because of the pandemic. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it a lot. I just kind of switched focus and never looked back. And so it's nice to say like, oh yeah, I do have the skill set and I can actually help people and it can raise money for our nonprofit so we can help more people. So I know that was everywhere, but I said all that to say dog training is expensive and I don't want to take away from the work that people put in. And I'm happy to be in a position where I can kind of like work with my resources and my network to kind of help people who can't afford that. But maybe with some tips and tricks, we'll be able to keep their pet at home a little bit longer instead of return to shelter, rehome, whatever may happen with common behavior issues.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that again speaks to the power of community. Like you have helped build this community, and together, you and other trainers under that nonprofit that helps provide some of those resources can make this happen. And I think that's so important because, again, it is a world where small business owners, and especially, like you said, animal welfare workers, also need to make a living, but there's also the very real need that so many pet parents have for these types of services. So the fact that you can bridge that gap in this way, that you're able to and that you're willing to, I think is huge. And also, I will validate that dog training has seemed to not be on your mind because I have gotten to collaborate with you for several months now. I had no idea that this was your past. Like this had truly gone right over my head. I did not realize that that was part of your background. And it totally tracks. Now that I know it, I'm not remotely surprised. But I love that you're coming back to it a little bit and coming back to it in this way that's going to be so impactful to the community. Like you said, keeping pets in their homes. Sometimes that is really complex and there are all sorts of systemic issues at play. And other times, well, there are always all of these systemic issues at play. But there are also times where having a little bit more access to resources, like a few useful training tips, can make such a big difference.
For sure. Like you said, it's just the smallest things, or really just teaching people how to communicate with their pets is the root of all dog training. I feel like I tell people, like, even at Petco, I'm like, I'm not here to teach you that much. Like, what I'm going to do is going to be a little repetitive and I'm going to get you started with your dog. And you're going to have to go home and train your dog when you leave. I'm just here to kind of connect the initial dot. like I said, and that's not always the case. Obviously, when dogs do have more complex behavior issues, it does require like a deeper level that is beyond, what we're doing at Petco. But, also shout out to Petco because I will say like the training was more robust than I thought. As far as like the material that they give us, when I did go on to advance myself and enter like certain certification programs, I already knew a lot of the stuff from Petco. And so that surprised me because at the time, even myself was just under the impression like Petco's a good place to start. Like you get your foot in the door, but this is not like the best of the best. And I'm still not saying Petco is the best. It's definitely every trainer, but the material that they gave us to learn from is accurate and up to date, or at least it was, in 2018. The people who mentored me telling me some of the same things I learned at Petco. I'm like, wow, okay, that is a good place to get my start. I knew more than I thought I did.
I think that's wonderful. And another testament to the fact that so many concepts in the dog world and also just life at large can come from a variety of sources. And it's really easy to write off certain sources. Like I've definitely been guilty of this. I have in the past looked down my nose at like Petco and PetSmart training programs because they're big box stores. But that's completely unfair of me to do. Sometimes when we give these things a chance, it turns out, like you said, that they actually lay a really good foundation. I like that. I'm happy to hear that about Petco.
Did you know that Juniper creates content for pet brands? From SEO-rich articles to videos that stop the scroll, we know how to tell stories that pet parents love. Ready to grow your brand? Visit us at juniperpet.co.
I have an idea for the last couple minutes here if you're down for it. I think it would be fun, given that we've spent a lot of this talking about training, if you let me put you on the spot and share like 1 to 3 high level pieces of advice that you would give a pet parent. Imagine that the person listening to this has just come to you for some low cost, affordable dog training. What are like 1 to 3 quick things that you would tell them right away? And then maybe I can give what mine would be sort of from the standpoint of having been through so much training with my own resident dog.
I like that a lot. I would say 1, use the clicker. A lot of people think it's harder. A lot of people think it's extra. It's really not. And it cuts down on the amount of repetition you have to do so much because it eliminates so many variables of people don't realize even when you use a marker word, you can use a marker word, but you have different tone, you have different inflection, you have different context. Sometimes you say it to people. Most of the time you say that word, your dog probably is ignoring you because you're not talking to them. So I think the clicker introduces something that is distinct, easily repeatable across your whole family if they're using it correctly, and can quickly get the point across. And it's a lot less ways to mess it up. And I think people are intimidated initially of just like, I don't want to have to. You can fade the clicker out. Once you understand how to use it, you really only use it to introduce new concepts. But I would just say, don't be afraid of the clicker. Don't be afraid of treats. Like treats are your friend. I think a lot of punishment is ingrained in how we operate as a society. And I did a lot of work telling people, like, it's okay to give your pets treats. You would think that treats were bad. And I'm like, even if you're concerned, just bring their food to class and use little pieces of food. But a lot of people have the attitude of like, well, I don't want to just give him treats for just sitting there. And it's kind of like, why do we just hate things? Like, let's just take a moment and think about why do we act that way with children? Why do we act that way with animals? Just it's a mindset shift. And I would say really that training is lifelong and it's better for you to train your dog than it is for me to train your dog. 100%.
I loved all of those, but I really loved that last one. I think my top one is to set goals for your own lifestyle. I struggled so much in the beginning, especially because Scout had pretty intense fear reactivity to other dogs and we lived in apartments and it was just like years of our lives that were so incredibly stressful. And I was looking for help anywhere that I could get help. And that curiosity was really great. And my openness to advice was really great. But I lost a little bit like what I wanted life with my dog to look like anyway, because I would start learning about someone's reactivity program and then like just sort of absorb everything about how they lived with dogs. I'm the one who lives with Scout. So like under the guidance of trusted trainers, and definitely it's really important to know when we don't know something, but like within that box, you get to pick if something is a problem for your life or not, if it's not hurting anybody else. So like I love when Scout begs. She begs for food shamelessly. I encourage her begging for food. And we've also built in behaviors I can ask her for so that she stops begging if it's ever a problem in a certain context. So yeah, I guess that's maybe sort of like two things. And then the final one I would say is play with your dog, whatever way that looks like. But especially if you're in the thick of training, sometimes it's easy to separate that nitty gritty training just from like having fun together with this creature who shares your home and who is part of your family. And it's really healthy to find lighthearted ways to engage. It took a long time before Scout was willing to play with me in the traditional sense of like an engaged game of tug or a prolonged game of fetch. But even just like little ways to like goof off and lighten it up so that it doesn't feel like every interaction is like a strict training interaction and you lean into that social joy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would say with my dog too, like she doesn't play outside much because she's a German Shepherd, so she's always aware. And literally, like, not until we were able to get a fence for our backyard is she able to spend enough time outside where she's relaxed enough in our yard for me to like throw a ball. And she'll actually go out. But usually it's like, no, like I'm not doing none of that. So it, like you said, it can be hard to find ways to be active outside depending on your dog's personality and how comfortable they are. And, so
Yeah. Well, it has been so great to chat with you again, and to just have like a for fun conversation. Thank you so much for making the time. And I'm so excited to keep working with you.
for sure.
Thanks for listening to the Juniper podcast. Don't forget to sign up at juniperpet.co for guides, articles, and newsletters that make pet parenting easier. And if you're a pet brand looking for creative content that connects, drop us a line at juniperpet.co. We'll see you next time.